Hello, good morning class. So this is your science teacher, Montanya Bernardo. So last time we discussed all about the benefits and dangers of microbes. So again class, what is microbes? Okay, so when we say microbes, this is the tiny living things that are found all around us. And this is too small to be seen by the naked eye. And we all know that the microbes live in water, soil, and in the air. The others live in the human body. Okay? So this time class, we're going to discuss all about the asexual reproduction. Okay? The asexual reproduction. So let us proceed. Okay. So first class, let us define what is reproduction. So reproduction is one of the characteristics of organisms. An organism cannot live forever. Therefore, to preserve the species, the organism must produce new organisms that have the same traits as them. Reproduction is the ability of organisms to produce their own kind. An organism may perform either sexual or asexual reproduction. So, ito daw reproduction na ito ay pagpaparami. So, alam natin na ang mga organisms ay hindi naman nagtatagal panghabang buhay. So, para daw maparami yung iba't ibang klase ng species na meron tayo, so kailangan na mag-produce tayo. Kumuha tayo ng, halimbawa, kung nauubusan na tayo ng mga species ng mga halaman, so gagawa tayo ng panibagong traits na katulad nila. So in this topic class, we will going to just focus on the asexual reproduction. Okay? Okay, so asexual reproduction. So refers to the process of producing offspring from one parent without the union of gametes or the sex cells. So itong asexual class, walang mate na nangganap. Ito ay nanggaling lamang sa isang parent. Kaya nga ay, sabi is producing offspring from one parent without the union of gametes. Depending on the process of asexual reproduction, a parent cell may reproduce one or more offspring that are identical to it. Ayan. So, isa pa yung asexual reproduction, especially in lower forms of organisms, allows organisms to reproduce quickly para magparami ng mabilis. This mode of reproduction helps prevent organisms from declining rapidly. When organisms have large populations, intruders cannot easily occupy their habitats. Ayan, so kung meron daw malaking populasyon, halimbawa sa mga hayop, ayan, so hindi basta-basta makakapasok yung iba't ibang uri ng hayop doon sa kanilang lugar para maagaw yung kanilang tirahan. So, ganito yung nangyayari kapag sa asexual reproduction. Okay? So, also, asexual reproduction helps multiply organisms even in harsh and desolate environments because it only requires one parent. Ayan. Ito ay isang parent lamang. Hindi ito dalawang parent, kumbaga, na kapag nag-mate, ayan, merong anak. Ito, kaisa lang ang kailangan para mag-produce ng isang or ng offspring. So, organisms do not need to find a mate to preserve their species. Hindi nila kailangan. However, because of the offspring produced is identical to the offspring, asexual reproduction does not involve a change of genes. Walang pagbabago dun sa mga genes nila. Materials that carry the traits of an organism. So, kung ano yung nasa parent, ganun din yung nasa offspring. So, the offspring do not acquire additional features that will help them to adapt to any environment. So, these organisms are prone to extinction should the environment change significantly. Ayan, so prone sila sa pagkaubos kasi nga itong asexual reproduction, dahil isang parent lang naman ang kailangan, kaya parang hindi ganon ka importante kumbaga. napakabilis maubos ng kanilang mga species dahil sa environment. Okay. So, sexual reproduction in microorganisms and animals. So, binary fission is a type of asexual reproduction wherein the cell splits into two to produce two identical offspring. So, ang tawag pala doon sa type ng asexual reproduction na kapag yung cell niya ay nag-split into two is binary fission ang tawag. Organisms that can reproduce through binary fission include bacteria. Ito. Kasi class, yung mga bacteria po na yan, hindi sila mamamatay ng basta-basta lang. Sila ay, kapag sila ay nag-divide, so ibig sabihin, mas dadami pa yung bacteria. So the process of multiplication is so quick in binary fission that if the conditions are favorable, one bacterium could give rise to billions of bacteria in an hour. So isipin nyo yun class, kapag lalo na favorable sa kanila yung condition, yung environment, ayan, so mas mabilis silang dadami. Sabi dito, within 1 hour ay billion agad yung bacteria na magmumultiply. Okay, so yung mga protists, they also produce through binary fission under favorable conditions. So, yun din palang mga protists na yan, class. Yung mga nasa una nating discussion, sila po ay binary fission din. Okay. Next, budding is a type of asexual reproduction in which the parent cell produces a bud on its surface. As the bud gets bigger, it eventually pinches off from the parent cell. So, yeast is an example of microscopic fungus that reproduces by budding. One yeast cell can actually produce 24 daughter cells. So, hydra is an organism that can reproduce by budding. So, yung hydra na yun, class, this is live under the surface of the seawater, class. Sa ilalim ng dagat. Kumbaga ay nagre-regenerate yung kanyang nagre-regenerate yung kanyang katawan. Ito class, ito pong picture na ito, this is the hydra forming a bud on its surface. Yan. So ito po ay isang uri ng animals, hindi ito isang halaman. Okay, so from the nucleus, ayan, mapo-form yung panibago niya. Ayan. Dun sa kanyang side, mabubuo yung kanyang daughter. Yung kanyang panibagong bud. Okay. So, next we have the fragmentation. Okay? So, an organism splits into fragments. These fragments may develop and mature into new organisms with the exact copy of their parents' genetic material. So, organisms that reproduce by fragmentation are cyanobacteria. These are the blue-green bacteria, the lichens and sponges. Okay, class. So, baka isipin nyo itong mga lichens na ito and then yung mga sponges na yan, they are not a type of plants. Sila po ay mga animals. So, sila po ay nag-produce via fragmentation. So, fragmentation as observed in cyanobacteria in the left and lichens in the right. Class? So, kumbaga, yung kanilang part ng katawan ay naputol, so hindi yun mamamatay. So kapag nag-splits yon into fragments, anong mangyayari? Made-develop at magmamature yung panibagong organism. So magagaya niya yung exact copy nung nasa parents niya. Yung parents' genetic material. Okay? So regeneration. It is a special type of sexual reproduction. The process can replace an injured or lost body part, such as those of sea stars or starfishes. However, in some cases, the regenerated body part can grow into a whole organism. Planaria, a flatworm, for example, can reproduce asexually and sexually. Asexually, the flatworm pulls itself into pieces. Each piece regrow its lost parts by regeneration. Depending on the number, each piece can form a whole organism. So some species of planaria are exclusively asexual. So this is an example of regeneration class. Ito pong planaria. This type of species parang kagaya nung sa mga starfishes. So for example, na hati yung part ng planaria or yung body part niya. So ano yung mangyayari? Magre-regenerate yung kanyang naputol na yon at ma-form siya ng panibagong starfishes o ng isang planaria. So ganyan yung nangyayari kapag nagkakaroon ng regeneration. Even class yung mga mga jellyfish. Ayan, so sila po ay hindi namamatay, kundi yung kanilang katawan po ay nagre-regenerate. Okay, so asexual reproduction in plants. Okay, so number 1 we have the tuber. So what is tuber class? This is a swollen part of an underground stem. It bears a number of nodes or eyes. Each eye bears one or more buds, and new plants are produced from the buds present in the eye. Potatoes and dahlias reproduce by this method of asexual reproduction. Okay, so eto class na tuber na ito, ang example po nito ay yung mga potatoes and yung mga dahlias. Yung mga dahlias na yan ay pwede natin silang ihambing doon sa mga kamote, yung mga balinghoy. So, ang tawag po sa kanila ay mga tuber. Yung mga potatoes na yan and mga dahlias. Next, we have the rhizome. It is an underground horizontal stem where each node gives rise to a new plant. The plant uses the rhizome to store starch, proteins, and other nutrients that are useful when new shoots form. So, ginger is one plant that can reproduce through its rhizome. Yan. So, ang example ng rhizome, itong mga ginger. So, itong mga luya kasi na ito class, yung kanila pong mismong mga nodes nila. So, dyan, mag-arise yung panibagong mga plant. Okay? So, the next one, we have the corm. A vertical underground stem. It thickens as it continues to grow. Plants can regenerate their corms. Taro or gabi is a plant that reproduced by corms. Ayan. So, ito naman sa corm class. Ayan. So, dumadami yung kanilang mga dahon sa pamamagitan ng taro or gabi. Ayan. So, pag dumami na yung mga dahon nila, ibig sabihin, ayan, sobrang malaki na itong taro. So, this is a corm. Next, we have the bulb. It is a special bud that is thick and fleshy. It serves as storage of food during the period of dormancy to enable plants to survive adverse conditions. So, onions and water hyacinths are plants that reproduce through their bulbs. Ayan. So, ito palang bulb na ito, example po ay yung mga onions and yung mga hyacinths. So, ito yung mga matubig class sa loob. So, next, we have the sucker source sprouts. Give rise to new plants. Examples of these plants are cherries and apples. Ayan. So, sila naman po ay kapag sumibol na yung kanilang mga buto, ayan. So, mabilis silang sumibol. Next, we have the runner or stolon. Is a stem that grows below the ground, forming adventitious roots at the nodes and forming a new plant from the buds. This is an important part of strawberries and numerous grasses. Ayan. So, yung kanilang mga nodes, yung mga nodes nila, yung mga roots nila, ayan. So, mabilis silang mag-form ng panibago. Kasi yung mga strawberry po, sila ay mga pahaba kumbaga yung sumibol. Next, we have the adventitious buds. Developed in some plants, they are usually dormant, but when they come in contact with the soil, they develop into new plantlets. So, kapag daw yung dahon lang itinanim mo, mabilis silang sumisibol. So, one example is the katakataka leaf. Okay? Yan. So, alternation of generations. So, mosses and ferns have a very interesting pattern of reproduction. They reproduce by alternation of generations. Alternation of generation refers to the process whereby organisms reproduce both asexually and sexually. Okay. So, let us take a look. So most life cycle. Number 1 is sporophyte, spore-bearing plant releases the spore from its capsule. Number 2, the spores will then germinate, which will undergo cell division to give rise to a gametophyte gamete-bearing plant. Yan. So the male's gametophyte contains anteregium. So meron sila anteregium where sperm cells develop and mature. Meron din sila. The female's gametophyte contains the archegonium. So where the egg cell develops. Because mosses inhabit moist areas, so mahilig daw sila, or mostly makikita sila sa mga moist areas, water from moist or raindrops cause sperm cells to be released from the anteregium and meet with the stationary egg cell in the archegonium. So ito po ay true sexual, tama. So the fusion of sperm and egg cell forms a zygote. Then the zygote undergoes mitosis or cell division to produce a sporophyte. Ayan. So this is the life cycle of mosses, no? Next is the fern life cycle, yung mga pako. Ayan. So on the underside of the fronds are sporangia. Within the sporangia are spore-producing cells. So mabilis silang sumibol class, especially kapag sila ay nadadala ng mga hangin, ano? When the spores are mature, they are released from the sporangia. So the germinating spores will develop into a gametophyte. So the fern gametophyte is a small bisexual heart-shaped plant called a prothallus. Yan. And then the underside of the prothallus form gametes. Okay, and the number 4, as the zygote grows into an embryo, it remains attached to the prothallus for nourishment. So napakaraming pinagdadaanan bago sila maging isang ganap na fern. The prothallus dies as the embryo grows and develops into a new fern. Ayan. Ayan. So, pinakita lang naman dito yung kanilang life cycle class. Okay, so did you understand, class? Okay, so what have you learned in our discussion? Okay, so we learned that the advantages of asexual reproduction include the population can increase rapidly when the conditions are favorable. Only one parent is needed, and it is more time and energy efficient as you don't need a mate. So yun yung kagandahan naman ng asexual reproduction. Okay? So if you have any questions or clarifications, kindly ask me. So that's it for now, and goodbye, class!